Good morning and welcome. My name is Michele Jutrisa and I'm an independent demonstrator of Stampin' Up here in New South Wales, Australia. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please jump on, say hello, let us know where you're visiting us from, and tell us maybe a little bit about yourself. So I have been working on, over the last few weeks, on a scrapbook album which is all about me. I've pulled out ended up purchasing a 6x8 album that Stampin' Up have, which is, if I just grab it here, I'm just going to move a few things around the place, let me just turn my camera down so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so here is and everything gets reversed. Oh, let me have a look and see if I can correct this, because this was all playing up on me this morning. So let's just have a look and see if I can flip this. So bear with me 1 second. That looks better. Okay, please let me know if you're on, that looks like it's the right way around for you. Okay, so, and I'm just going to, I've been in such a tiz this morning, I haven't even got everything all set up properly, so just bear with me. I just need to move my camera a little bit, because usually I have my camera way over here and it's still set over the other side of the desk where I have it when I'm generally working. So, when one of those days not quite going the way you expect it to go. Let's just take that back up to there again. And okay, am I making everybody sick yet with moving everything around? Oh, this is all played up during the night because it was working for me beautifully yesterday, but today it seems to want to. Okay, we're going to leave it at that. Okay, then I'm just wanting to let's take that up there a little bit and move my camera backwards a little bit. There we go. You can see my desk, see a bit of the mess around me. Unfortunately, I tend to work in a little bit of a mess, so we'll move that up there so it doesn't look too bad. Okay, so this is a 6x8 album if you haven't seen one before. It is in the Stampin' Up catalogue, and it's on their online store. And they also have now the 6x8 page inserts to go in them, as well as the ones like this one here. I'll just take the tag off it, which you can see is a pocket page, so you can slip your photos into it. Really great if you're doing quick layouts. Hello, Deborah. How are you going? Thank you for joining us. And so I've been working on this for the last couple of weeks and been with you guys on my live. I have finished this page. I don't know whether I showed this last week or not, but I know I did show it the week before, where I had popped the paper on, but I hadn't worked out a title. So now I have a title on there, and then on the back of it I have got a sentiment I found in my Memories and More cards, and I decorated the back with strips of paper and some basic white, which I die cut this lovely lace edge a couple of times in it, and that is taken from one of the new sets we have, which is called Adored in Beauty, which I've used a few times throughout this album because I really do love the bits and pieces in that, and it works very well with these smaller albums. So I'm slowly working through this bit by bit. And yesterday, when I was going through some photos, looking for photos of my boys so I can finish the pages that I started last week, I came across some really old photos of mine that I had actually thought that I'd lost. And one of them was this photo here. So this is taken in the 1970s, and it's at a place called Marineland, which was in Queensland. No longer exists. I think SeaWorld sort of started up a few years after Marineland, and then I think SeaWorld eventually absorbed Marineland. But it's a similar sort of thing where they have, sort of dolphins and whales and different sea life and so forth. So that was a quite exciting moment for me when I was a child. Thank you, Deborah. It's coming together. I'm really pleased with it. But I'm breaking my album up into sections. And the first section is going to be about me, and I've still got a lot more to put into there. So I'll be doing things like adding, sort of a little bit about me, about my favourite colours, about more of my personality probably. The next section is going to be me as a child, and I haven't worked out my title yet, and I'll be creating another divider which will go for that section, which is all about my childhood. So this photo really works in really, really well with it, because we lived up on the far north coast for about 4 years in the 1970s. From around about 1970 to 1974. My dad worked in the bank, so we moved around a lot. So finding this photo was really good. But as you can see, the photo started to deteriorate. It's already starting to turn yellow. So I looked at it very quickly this morning, and I thought, I've got to do something about it. So what I've done is I've gone to GPT chat, and I've asked them to restore this photo for me. So that's what they've come up with, which, tell you what, I don't think I could have even done any better. I know the colours and that they're assuming what they could be. But look, from what I can remember, they are pretty close. I mean, they've got my top there is almost a blackish green colour. I think it could have been a little bit more blue, but I'm not going to quibble on that. I just, yeah, that's what I was thinking. My childhood would be a great title for this section. But I mean, I just really, and actually, I've just thought of what papers, because this whole thing is about using up what I've got in my stash. And so I'm not really wanting to purchase, besides the fact I've purchased an album, I'm trying to use up what I've already got rather than buying more things in. I mean, I've had to buy the pages and I've had to buy the album, but otherwise all the cardstock and everything so far is stuff that I've got. And I've just thought, I've got all that paper that has got the rabbits and everything on it. And that will work really well as a childhood title page. Thank you, Deborah. I've got something to work on this afternoon. But anyway, let's get back to these photos. You've set me on a tangent. So I found these photos, and I thought, well, today I'm going to work on this. I did also find other photos, which I will quickly show you, which I will use as well. So when I'm doing a bit about me, I'm going to do a bit about my work, places I've worked, and I was just thinking of doing a list, but I knew there was a photo somewhere, and that is my very first job. I worked in a clothing factory, and I was a machinist. Now, I cannot for the life of me, and I don't think I wrote it on the back, no, I can't remember what this lady's name was, but she became quite a good friend. I was only about 18, maybe 19 at the time. It must have been early morning because I've still got my handbag there next to me. I'm not going to crop any of this photo down because it's got lots of memories. The sewing machine I worked at would have been just directly here behind me. So, and I worked there, and I worked on the fusing machine, which was over here. And these tables that we're standing next to here with a newspaper in front of us, and it must have been around about Christmas time, because it looks like I've got a Christmas present there all wrapped up. Maybe I was giving it to her. But that was the tables that they laid the fabric out on to cut them, because she was one of the cutters. And she became quite a stable person. for me when I was working there, and I've worked there for about 3 years. So I was really, really excited about finding that. So that photo is also going to go into this album somewhere. I also want to do a section, and I haven't got it with me, or do I? I'm just trying to work out what I've got here. It's somewhere. I've got a photo frame that I've had ever since I was in my teens, that I got filled with photos of my parents, my sisters, and it's sort of a little bit of a collage type thing. It's only quite small, but I'm going to take that and I'm going to recreate that same collage. I've just got to scan some of the photos because they are starting to get a bit old, which is of, a couple of my best friends at the time, and my sisters, as I said, and my parents. And that's sat on my bedside table for many, many years. So I also found that. I also found a photo of my two best friends, and that's the house we lived in with my parents. So before they did up the front of it, and this would have been just after we finished school. It could have even been the year after. It may have even been the same year that this photo up here was taken in. There is another photo somewhere with me with them as well. So I've got a bit more searching to do. And other photos that I found that I thought I'm going to pop into this album because I really love them is I used to love dressing up. I used to love pretending that I was somebody who I wasn't. And I was given the opportunities through my church. This was a church camp we went on. So, yes, that is me dressed up as a clown. And as a Joey Scout leader, I used to dress up quite a bit and had quite a bit of fun because it didn't matter what you were feeling. If I was feeling really down and really depressed, as soon as I put that clown costume on or a costume on, I became that person. And so I became, it became fun. And as you can see, we were singing at this church camp. And then I also found this photo, which I thought had been lost, which was me at a house party that my flatmates and I were having, and I made that face mask because it was a masked party. So we all went dressed up with in character with a mask on. So I had a lot of fun finding things that I thought were missing. So I've got a lot more photos here now to work on. So I hope you come back and join me as we continue working on them. So I'm going to pop all of those away now, and I'm working on these photos. Now, I've also printed this photo in a smaller format. It's round, just a bit smaller than the original, because what I want to see is if I use this one here, I'm sort of wanting to have this photo in there, but I'm thinking of using a flip flap and having that behind, mounted behind, because I just don't want any more damage to come to it. But that is the original photo. But then I want to see how this is going to look on a 6x8 page. It may be too big. I don't really want to cut it down. So I've printed two just to see. But if I use this one, then I may not be able to put this into a flip flap because it's a lot bigger. So let's start working on this and let's start playing. And if you've got any ideas or anything like that, please pop them in the comments. It's always helpful. Okay. Yeah, it's good looking back on our life, and especially when you sort of, like, I really thought I had lost those photos. I thought they were gone. But to discover they were there, that made my day. Okay, so what I'm just doing here is I'm just cutting myself a couple of 6x8 pages. I'm not quite sure yet whether I'm going to be, needing these or not, but it's always good to have these handy. And since our paper is pretty much 12 inches, I'm cutting two of these, so I've got them for future anyway. So there's 2 pages. Now, I did have an idea. I've pulled out of my scraps this paper here because I thought that this paper worked really well. I didn't want anything too busy or too dark. I wanted it to highlight these photos. And I also have, now I've got a little tray of them somewhere on here. If you guys could only just see what my desk looks like, you'd be disgusted. I did place them somewhere safe. There they are, just underneath my trimmer. I have found in my stash also all of these bits and pieces that I had left over from doing layouts of my son on the beach, which is what these papers were originally purchased for. I have kept this stamp set and dies, which is the Seaside Wishes, though I don't think that one belonged to it. I think that belongs to something else, which I probably have kept as well, because I just think this is just a lovely set to have. But I've got all these left over, so I thought, well, I don't need to recreate those. The other one I've pulled out of my stash is, let me just grab this piece of paper out of here because that doesn't need to be there. Is Waves of Inspiration, because I want to stamp this particular image here with the pelican. And don't think I can use any of that as titles or anything like that. I'm just having a look. Maybe even that would be quite nice. Sometimes the simplest things mean the most. We'll have a look, but I might be able to grab a title from those there. So if we're going to use this, now I was also thinking, I've pulled out the Pretty Peacock and Crumb Cake in the two-sided double-sided cardstock, of matting this one as well. So I'm sort of, but I'm not quite sure yet where I want this to be positioned. So let's cut this down, and I am going to cut this down to a 6x8 because I can always trim it again. So what I want is, we pop our cardstock in our trimmer and hit that side there, we know we've hit our 6-inch mark. So I'm just going to cut that at 6 inches, pop that to one side. We've also got on the back of this pattern here. So if you wanted to add a little bit more of a pattern into it, that's a good one. I thought the other patterns that went in this particular designer series paper were a little bit too heavy for this, but I really want this to sort of stand out a bit. So if we're going to pop that onto here, I think having that little bit of an edge there could be quite nice. But let's have a look at the photos on here, because I don't know whether that photo is going to be way too big, because we've got to remember that that's going to be somewhere about there. Now I've also got to decide whether I'm going to take this up to the top, which means that I'm probably going to lose this crumb cake section, or do I take it down into the middle and have a little bit of both, which means I'm going to lose a lot of the white from the top to the bottom. The other thing could be, instead of having the Pretty Peacock underneath, I could go back to the white. But I think the Pretty Peacock actually makes the colours in this quite pop. Even though there's, the green in the Marine Land sign there is more of a green, like not quite a garden green, but sort of, whereas this has got a lot more blue in it. I think it still looks good. So I think I might cut this also down into a 6-inch piece. And I think I'm going to put that border around it. Now, I am looking at doing this, instead of doing it as a scrapbook page, like my thought process, instead of working it sort of as a scrapbook page, I'm going to think of it more as a card layout, because, I mean, this is smaller than a 12x12, but bigger than a 4x6 card, or, or 10.5 by 14.9, 15 centimetre card. So you sort of you're halfway in between the two. So you can use the same sort of process that you would do with designing a card, but just enlarging it. Rather than thinking about a 12 by 12 and making it smaller because you've got less area. So you're sort of thinking, I'm not quite sure whether I'm making any sense anymore. Yeah, you can add pieces like you would do a card. Anyway, I'm going to cut this piece here also down, but as I said, I've got to decide, do I want any of that crumb cake in there? So let's just have a quick look. I'm going to have it sitting over on this side. I might just bring that up there to that like that, because the photo is looking in that way. I only want like a 1/4 of an inch border around it. Now this is where again I've got to decide whether I'm going to go the smaller photo or the bigger photo. So I'm going to leave that sitting there, because if I use the bigger photo, we are going to have less area to pop all of these little pieces in. And as I said, I do want to add that pelican in as well, even though there's no pelican in there. Well, I'm thinking I want to add it in. It may not happen as yet, but be good to have the... So if we did that size, we're very limited with what we've got around it. We're also very limited if we wanted to add a strip of another piece of paper in there. Not quite sure whether I do. I think it's just going to make it too busy, because I think because we're working on, and this is why I'm saying you've got to think a little bit more like you're working on a card. You're working on a smaller area, so you don't have as much room to add a lot of bits and pieces. I have got stamp sets here that are ocean orientated. I'm just pulling out a few of them here, because you've got this one here, relaxing waterside. There are parts of that you could add. I've got a seashell one here somewhere. Trying to work out where I've put it. But which is also discontinued. So you sort of, there's a few things in here that you could add. I want to keep it as simple as possible. I don't want to draw my attention away from this. And I think by adding another paper, but if you were going to add another paper, you could just add a strip in there if you wanted to. And I will put a piece in there so we can see what I'm talking about. But let's just start by cutting this down. We've still got to decide whether we're going to go the bigger photo or the smaller photo. At the moment, I'm thinking I like the smaller photo, as long as these pieces here don't overpower it, because I mean, like this dollar piece here is quite big, but we also have the smaller ones as well. So we could add, keeping your pieces here smaller and having those anchored in there. And by having a smaller photo, you can add more sentiments, more titles, that sort of thing. So really look at your photos. If you're using photos that are printed from a long time ago, you want to look at your photo and think about, okay, can you crop it out? It's like the photo I said of me in my job. Let me just put it back in. You know, if I was to look at that and I was just going to think about, you know, do a layout, particularly just say on me and or on her, you could actually crop, if I turn this over, you could crop quite a bit of that photo out. But if I crop all of that out, I've lost where the photo was taken. I've lost all that visual information. So by leaving all of that there, I can see from this photo that, you know, there's a gift there. So it must have been around about Christmas time. It would have been early in the morning or even at lunchtime, because I had my handbag with me, and that's my bag. I can see the desks behind, and then, you know, I can just visually see the computer belt just there, which ran down the length of the shed, with the sewing machines coming off it. and that's where we got our work from. So there's information in this photo that I could cut out. So just be very aware when you're looking at old photos. You don't want to cut them down too much to make them fit. And besides me rescanning this photo just to repair the photo, it gave me the ability then to make it a smaller photo. I've still kept everything in here, but I've been able to reprint the photo with my selfie that's kept all the information in the photo, but I've made the photo smaller. I've brought the size of it down without actually having to crop anything out. Because sometimes when you're looking at photos and you're wanting to crop things, it could be a photo, like we've got a photo of my husband who was a baby leaning up against his parents' car. Now, he has got fond memories of that car. And if I crop that photo in, because the photo of him was quite small, if I crop that in too much, I'm going to be losing that memory for him of the vehicle his parents had, because they had it quite a few years. There's sometimes when you've got a photo that's got your family pet in it, you could crop that photo, but are you going to lose the picture of that pet? That pet could be off to one side. The photo may not have been about that pet, but the pet's in there, and it could bring back memories for yourself or for whoever is looking at it. So really think about your photos, and I think this is the beauty of having things like your selfie printer or whatever printers you've got. You can play with it, keep the information from the photo, but make the photo smaller, which is going to fit into your smaller albums. And vice versa, if you're working on a 12 by 12, I could scan this and used a bigger photo, which is here, a 4 by 6, and used it on, or I can even scan that up and print it up much bigger, which will work as a 12 by 12 because I've only got one photo of it. So, think about what photos you're going to use and how you're going to use them, particularly when you're going to smaller areas like this. So let's just trim this down a little bit, and let's cut this down. Now, as I said, I still haven't worked out exactly where I want this to go. Do I want more the bottom? Do I want more the top? Do I go in the middle? I think I'm going to go in the middle because I do like to have a little bit of this, because this colour here is picking up a little bit on my hair colour. It's not just all one colour. This is going to actually bring out my trousers, myself, because I'm a lot fairer than the other woman in the photo, and also the colours in the dolphin a little bit as well. So let's give this a bit of a trim. So I've already cut it 6 inches wide. I want to cut it, I just want to take it down to 8, and then I'm going to take it down again, because that just helps me to work out what I want to do. So let's pull this out, and I'm just going to pop my photo on there so I can sort of see what I've got. So I'm going to do my first cut. Probably, I'm just having a look where my 8-inch mark is, and it is just about there. So I'm sort of thinking, if I cut it there, I've got a little bit of this white at the top. So I'm going to trim that piece off. I'm going to pop that to one side, and then I'm going to trim that down to 8. I do need to cut this down a little bit further still. So I want to take 1/4 of an inch off. So I'm going to take 1/2 an inch off on this side. I want to retain that white up there, so I'm going to take, I'm going to take 1/2 an inch off the bottom, and that's going to give me 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So if we have a look at this now on my piece of Pretty Peacock, that's going to give me that border all the way around there. Now this is where, since I've cut those, I have got some scrap pieces here. So if you wanted to add, and this is where I was sort of saying, think of it like a card. If you're doing a card with lots of layers, what you could do is you could add a piece like this on here, you could decide which way, because that's giving that a lengthwise. And then your photo, because I'm going to mount this on a piece of basic white, could go onto there, which could give it a little bit of an interest, okay? So this is where thinking a little bit more like a card comes in handy for doing this type of scrapbooking on a smaller page than maybe thinking of a 12 by 12 and bringing it down, because you've got too many elements to shrink, whereas with a card, all you have to do is make those elements a little bit bigger, not too much bigger. So if I went for the bigger photo, and I could also even bring that around to that side, then that could be popped on there, and that's just using a scrap piece. Now, if you wanted to, you could turn this around and have it running that way and just trim it down, and then that gives an anchoring piece then also to pop your pieces like that on. And because I'm pretty much decided, I think I'm going to use this smaller photo, and I'm going to have to work out where I'm going to pop that other photo. But I might like, because I do prefer this piece here, if I'm going to use this piece, going that way more than up and down. But it does give me, as I said before, that anchor piece to place these pieces here on. And actually, I don't mind that. Didn't think I was going to like it that much, but I don't mind that. Now I could move that up there. Let's just have a look at these sentiments from these two stamp sets, because they're just here and handy. Sometimes the simplest things mean the most. Now that could easily be stamped directly onto there. Now I'm just thinking ahead here. I know I have got even the stickers and everything that go with this, and I'm just wondering where they are, because they're not with my papers. Have a little bit of a think for me. You go and enjoy your supper, Lorraine. Thank you for jumping on. And I'm just going to very, very quickly jump over here, because I have got a section of scrapbooking kits over here. So maybe I might find that kit in amongst my bits and pieces here. Let's just have a very quick look through. If I don't find it here, yes, I have found it. There may be some titles and some bits and pieces from this that we can use. Just got to be aware that I have still got another page for my son's layout to use on this. So let's have a quick look. What have I got in here that we can enjoying the moment? See, we've got, because that's very small. So I'm going to pop that up there for the moment. And I think that's going to be too big. What else is on this sticker sheet? Probably really should put these two kits together. Oops, let me just... It's all cut up, so it's all bits and pieces all over the place. So let's have a look what we've got here. Just going to close that up before I lose something else on the floor. I did have a table that was beside me, and I've removed the table, and now I've got stuff everywhere. Okay, so what else have I got in here? I've got Nothing but smiles, best of times, things to remember, together we have it all, they're not really suitable. Dream, no. My happy place, well, it was my happy place, but that title is just too big. Loving this. But some of those stickers going across there, I still like that better. No, I don't think I'm going to use anything out of this. I think that's all. They're all a little bit too big. And that's where you've got to sort of make that decision. What's going to suit a 12 by 12 and what's going to suit a 6 by 8. So I've still got to go back and let's just have a quick look in amongst my stamp sets that I've put away for scrapbooking. Because we might find a title we can use amongst those. Nature is my happy place. So it is nature. Hello, sunshine. So I've got a long sleeve shirt on, so I'd say it was probably winter. It's a great big world out there, maybe. We could use day. Smile, happy, family, friends, laughter. A day to remember. Actually, I quite like that one. Let's pull that out and let's use that. So, see, sometimes it is quite good to keep some of our stash. But a day to remember. I'm going to stamp this onto scrap to see how it's going to look. And I just so happen to have my pretty peacock ink here from yesterday. So that's going to work out well. Got a block. Now I'm going to use this piece here because I'm thinking actually of stamping it about there. Actually, what I might do is I've got a white piece, and rather than using up that, I do have a white piece here. Okay. Now, I'm just going to remove this, trim this down. You know what? That's going to look quite good there. And I could actually fussy cut that because then sometimes when I fussy cut, what I tend to like to do is just draw myself a line around. Just gives me a bit of an idea. And I can rub this out with a rubber afterwards. But it also just gives me a bit of a idea of where I'm going to cut. Just gives me a guideline. Because sometimes when we start cutting things freehand, we can end up cutting off more than what we like. Whereas if we do it in pencil first, at least it gives us an idea of where we're going to go. Now I'm going to go take that line straight there because I've gone straight as I possibly can across there, because we've got two different fonts. Okay, so let's start fussy cutting. Now, of course, remember when you do fussy cut, you want to keep your scissors straight, even though at the moment I'm sort of going a little bit of an angle because I was just going into some sharp corners. But what you want to do is keep your scissors still and move your paper, and that'll give you a much smoother line. Now I'm cutting just on the inside of my pencil line, and that way I won't need to rub out much. You don't need to go in and out every little area as well. You want to keep it as smooth as possible. Whoops, I just went a little bit closer than I was expecting to go there, but that's okay. Now I still want to stamp and colour that pelican. Whoops, got a little bit close there. That's okay. Straight across the top there. Now you can always go back and just tidy up any little areas you think might need a little bit of a trim. You don't want your edges to be too ragged or too that I think is going to look good, and I think that will then fit into that area there quite well. So I think that's going to look good. So let's grab that pelican and let's stamp him. And since I've got basic grey here, I am going to stamp him in basic grey. Please excuse me, my cough. And now he does have a die that we can die cut him with, so that's good. So let's just ink that up well with my basic grey. Don't always like using black because it can sometimes just leave too much of a shadow. I'm going to stamp him again just on the rear because I think I may have needed a bit more ink in one spot. I think my ink pads might need to be re-inked. Okay, let's have a look. That's a little bit better. Yep, it will do. Pop those over there. Now the only colour I would want to get, and I haven't got it here with me, is I'm going to grab my crumb cake and pecan pie. Or actually, I might grab that one there, might be better. Okay, so what I've got here, I've got some balmy blue, pumpkin pie. I've got my smoky slate, and I've just grabbed the light and dark crumb cake and the SU300. Now, they've changed the colour names on these, and I don't know which one that is. I'll look it up on my sheet here. I don't have the old numbering on here. It's probably the medium in the skin tones and the natural tones. So I'll have to colour those in so then I know exactly what I'm looking at. So let's just give this little fella a bit of a colour. And I'm going to start with my light crumb cake. And I'm going to go over these logs. So I'm just going over that just to add that colour there to it. Then I'm going to come back in with the dark crumb cake and add a little bit of the shading, just following basically what Stampin' Up have given us in those images. And I just want to add a little bit on this up here. I'm just not going to do those ropes just yet. And I want to come back in with that light crumb cake as well. Just blend that out. It looks like I may need to purchase myself some more crumb cake. Now I've got this one here, which is the medium, which is the skin tones, and I just want to test that there, and I want to pop those ropes in this colour. Now I can just add a little bit of that too, not too much. Because timber, when it's in, especially in the water and so forth, it goes all sorts of different colours. It's looking a bit blotchy there, but by the time I go over this again with my light crumb cake, and that will blend that in. I might just even go over that a little bit with the darker. Just a matter of keeping going backwards and forwards sometimes with the colours. Just blend them out. By going over the top with your lighter colour, we'll just blend those darker colours out and let it blend in, because your lighter blends can tend to act a little bit like your colour lifter is what I'm trying to say. Now I just got a smoky slate, and I just want a little bit of that in this as well. So I've just got a little bit of, just want to add just a little bit of that into this timber, just to sort of give it a little bit more of a realistic look and shading. Now it is bleeding out around the lines. I'm not really worrying about that because I am going to die cut this out. And your blends will actually blend really well when the back of it, see how it's all getting saturated there on the back? That's because the blends are starting to work And you'll also find this will soften down a lot too once it starts to dry. Again, I'm just going over that with my light crumb cake. I'm just adding some different tones in there because I don't want it to blend too much into this. I want to stick him there so he's going to stand out a bit. So I'm going to grab my pumpkin pie and I'm going to use my fine tip, and I just want to do his feet and his beak. I want to add a bit more of the light smoky slate also into his beak. Now, while I've got that smoky slate, I am going to come in with his body and just go around the outer edge, just bringing it in, and I'm really just sort of spotting because I am going to also add a little bit of the blue into this, but I'm just putting a little bit on the top of his head, and I'm going to come in with the light balmy blue, and I'm going with the fine tip, and I'm just going to add a little bit of blue and bring that smoky slate, blend that in a little bit. I'm not doing too much because pelicans aren't blue, but blue seems to highlight white a lot. And I've left a little bit of a white area in the middle. I'm going to come back in now with my blend colour lifter. Again with the fine. And the colour lifter will pushes your colour away. But I'm just using it also just to blend those colours. Give it a little bit more of a white area in there. So I'm actually quite happy with that. I think that's it's going to work well on there. So let's grab our die for that and die cut him out. I've kept this set because I particularly like the clouds in it and I like the ocean in it. But I really love this little pelican. And we've actually even got a little stamp there with the seagulls, which we could add in as well. Okay, so let's get those out of the road. So I hope you've all been enjoying watching this album come together. It's definitely been fun, and it's making me do it rather than having it sitting there going, oh, I should really be doing this. So this is sort of twofold. Number one, it's making me create, and hopefully you're getting some inspiration out of it as well. Okay. So there's our pelican. Got a little bit of white edge down there, but that doesn't matter because I'm actually going to pop him into there like so. May even come in over that photo a little bit. And I definitely like the fact I've used the smaller photo because I don't want to have it too busy or too cramped. So there we go. We've got a basic layout. So let's put all this together. I'm glad I've given you some ideas, Deborah. So I want to cut this piece down to the same width as I've cut my main piece, which is, I took 1/2 inch off the 6 inches. So let's pop that in there and take off that 1/2 inch. Now, the only thing I haven't thought about with this is where I'm going to put my journaling. But because this is this album is an interactive album, and I did show on the day that I did some pocket pages to add, for recipes and things like that, that I am going to make a couple of pieces that are like a 1/2 page. that I'm going to have full of journaling. So I'm thinking I may just do that for this rather than trying to, if I had a flip flap, I could put journaling underneath that, but I've got these elements here I want to pop on top. So I'm sort of thinking that that may be the way to go. So let's grab my adhesive here. Yeah, another funny thing about me is I only ever use a tape runner when I'm scrapbooking. I use a lot of multi-purpose glue when I am card making, but when I go scrapbooking, I use a dry glue. Don't know why, but it's just something I tend to do. Okay, so this piece here, don't want to go too far up. So probably around about there. So I'm just going to lift that up and put a bit of adhesive there. And I'm just eyeballing this rather than having exact measurements, and a bit there. So by the time this goes into a page, it'll fit. Now, the only thing I haven't done is I was thinking of putting a white mat around this, but I only need to make a small one. So this piece that I cut off before, let's have a look and see how we go. It's going to make it a bit too small, so let's cut a piece off here. So our photo here is about 4 inches. I think it's 3 by 4. So what I want to cut is a piece which is going to be 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. And I think actually I want to take that down a bit more. That's too big. I just want a very small fine border on that. So let's go. What do I make it? 3 1/4. I'm going to make it 3 3/8. I'd rather take it down 1/8 at a time. And take it down too much and find I don't have enough. No, I can go down a bit more. So I'm going to do 3 1/8 and 4 1/8. So my photo could actually be slightly smaller too. It's just under 3 and it's just on 4. And that's better. So that's just 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Cards, another funny thing too about me. Cards, I work in centimetres. Scrapbooking, I go completely to inches. So you do the same, do you? Whoops. Well, that ain't straight. Get 2 sides straight, and then you should get the 3rd and 4th side straight. Unless something's cut a bit crooked. So let's just try this again. Something is a bit crooked, so I'm going to just trim this down to suit. Years ago, what I used to do a lot was actually put my photo onto my cardstock and then trim down from my cardstock down. But anyway, that was just a hair that had to come off. So we're going to pop that onto there. So I'm just going to pop some adhesive down through the center, and that's so I can tuck a few things in underneath. That like that. So now I just need to add all our little bits and pieces, our elements. So I didn't mention it before, but I've used the lighter side of the Pretty Peacock because I thought that toned in better with my cardstock rather than the darker side. And then this piece here I'm going to use on the darker side. And we're just going to tuck that into there like that, I think. And just bring these in and just make sure that is the smaller one. I think it is. So we're just going to pop that one there, and then this little guy is going to go, actually we're going to pop that on top, so this might even go on top there. So let's just glue this down, and this is where I will be using a bit of my liquid glue. Just need to pop just some little bits on. You don't need too much. That can go there. I want to put a dimensional up the top. I'm going to use my mini dimensionals for that. So I just want that pelican just to sit up a little bit. So I'm going to pop one there. I'm going to pop a little bit of glue at the bottom. And he can go there. I wonder if he should come down a little bit, maybe. Just a tad, so he doesn't, don't want him to take over from the dolphin like that. A bit more. The reason why I've flattened that out there is because I'm going to add these pieces here. Now our title can also have some dimensionals on that. I can use the bigger ones for this one. Now, I haven't glued this down as yet. I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue in the middle, and that will still allow me to slip things underneath if I want to slip a few things underneath him, because I don't want him to be too predominant, but I do want to use it as a grounding. So even oh, excuse me. Now I want to slip this little guy in. And it's just adding a little bit more colour, so it's all not the same colour. And again, it's sort of picking up me a little bit there. So let's just pop a little bit of glue on the bottom half of this. Now we've got some put some of these little starfish in there as well. And don't know whether we need another one or not. Do we just need the one, or should we put another in? Don't know whether I like that. I don't know if I like that. I do like that though. So I prefer to have these. I'm a very simple sort of scrapper, and I like my pages to look simple. But you can see there that I'm not overpowering my page too much. I can, if I wanted to, add a little bit of bling to this. We can definitely have a look and see what we've got. I'm sort of thinking these are, whoops, just lost a bling piece. They actually don't look too bad. I think I might use them. They've got a little bit of sheen to it, a little bit of shiny because it's got a little bit of tinsel in them. Oh, I've got so much bling there, it's not funny. For someone who doesn't use bling, I have got a huge amount of it. Thank you, Deborah. So let's just add some of these around. So I'm going to add a big one, maybe there, and maybe another one there. Don't want to add too many. I just want to put a little bit. So I've got one up here. I'm just wondering whether he should actually go more, because a bit of the problem with this, with adding too much bling, as far as I'm concerned, is, especially on a scrapbook page, is if you've got too many photos in your album, they can indent the photos of the previous, or the page next to it. So you don't want that sort of thing to happen. You don't want to be damaging. You know, we're sort of trying to preserve our photos and share our photos, not necessarily add too much to it that's going to, it's got too much height and that could damage. But I just wanted to put a little bit of something in there. So I've got one up there, and these aren't quite, they're not that flat, but I'm hoping that they will look all right. They're no higher than the dimensionals I used on there. So there you go. There's my page for today. So that's another one that can go into my album. And I'll be doing some more work today in this. So this one here, I'm not quite sure yet where in this album it's going to go. We've got this section here, which is all about me. as a child. This photo here is probably around about the same time as that one. That one was taken in around about 1971, 72. And I very quickly had a look at my heritage album, and my grandparents came up to visit us. It's got a little bit of something sticking up there. Came to visit us up there in 71, I think it was. So this is probably taken around about that same time, because we did take my grandparents up to Queensland. I went to Currumbin and places like that. So this is not far from where SeaWorld is today, I believe. I have to look it up to find out. So it may go into a page there. I'm not quite sure quite how that's quite going to fit, because I'll have to come up with something to go on the back of that page there. But let's find a single page that we can pop this into. I tend to like to put things in order of date and everything. So I'm going to have to find something to go on the back there, because some of those photos were taken prior. Maybe some more childhood memory photos. That one there for the moment can go into there. So there we go. Another photo. All I have to do now is my journaling, but as I said before, I'm going to do a strip that I will probably add the journaling on it, which will be a piece that can be flipped over. The other thing that I could do too for my journaling is, and I saw this, and this is actually quite fun, but I don't know whether I can, what you can do is grab one of these. Where is it? Let's have a look through my pages here. This page here, which is 4. And you would cut. So let me just do that then, because if I don't use it on this page, I will use it on another page. So taking the trimmer, what we're going to do is, you've got 4 pockets on this page. So I don't know whether you can actually see that. So what I'm going to do is trim down. So there's my flange, which is going to go in the hooks, and I want to trim down just to the right of that seam down the middle. So I've got these pockets here, which are now, and throw those in the bin, unless I can work out another way of using them. I won't throw them in the bin yet. But that's going to give me then this little piece here, which is only half a page. So you could add that into there. Because the other thing I was thinking too, because Marineland does not exist anymore, is doing a little bit of research and finding out a little bit about Marineland. So I could actually do some journaling and put it into those 2 pockets, and then maybe find some old photos online of Marineland to tell a little bit more of the story of Marineland, because it is one of those places that people don't even know today ever existed, and it was up there before SeaWorld was there. So I know the 2 of them did exist at the same time, but only for a very short period of time. And I also know that Marineland had a whale, and I can remember being very upset because the whale had actually died years after we had been there. And I have got an affinity with anything from the sea. I love whales. I love dolphins. So it was actually quite upsetting for me to hear that as a child that whale had passed away. And I think it had passed away because tourists had thrown things into the pool with it, and it unfortunately had eaten a lot of those things. So there is still a little bit of history to find about Marineland, and I might just add that into those pockets there, and as I said, do my journaling about my trip to Marineland from what I can remember. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. We've gone a little bit over my hour, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Thank you, Deborah, for giving me some ideas and even helping me with some memories of this time. So I hope one day that you can put your album together and share your album with me also. So thank you. Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and hopefully we'll catch up next Saturday. Bye for now.